To call to order the April 16th meeting of the Katuitt Fire District Board of Water Commissioners, starting with the roll call. Mr. Robinson.
Here.
Commissioner Horsley.
Here.
Commissioner Churbuck here. I have to ask if anyone else is recording this meeting under Massachusetts law. Please let yourself be known. Hearing none, open the floor to public comment. Any online?
None online.
Hearing none online, we'll move to the first agenda item, Mr. William Calder, bill and fine dispute.
Come on up.
Yeah, you can move that
Yeah,
up.
I'll look just close to yeah.
Evening, gentlemen.
How do you do?
Morning. My name is William Calder. I own 1045 Main Street, this time of road. I've been working on the redevelopment of the house and some additions in the back since I purchased it in 2023. I started the expansion of the house off the back in January of 23, where we opened up the back of the house, built the foundation. In the process of expanding the footprint of the house with the foundation, the back of the house was exposed to the elements. As much as we tried to, tarp it off and use, blankets and whatnot, still was too cold. I added heat trace to the water line. And I don't know if I wrapped it around the meter or not, but it was wrapped. And I had blankets around that as well. And on my way down to meet my foundation guy, he said he heard hissing in the basement. So when I got there, he already found the fact that the meter it froze and busted through the meter. And there was probably about 4 inches or 5 inches of water in the basement. So I called my neighbor, who's a commercial plumber across the street, who actually lives in Boston, but his house is across the street. And luckily he was there. So he came over, he put a valve on it. He took the meter off because that's where it was broken. It wasn't the pipe. The water was coming through the meter. So he took the meter off. The meter was still there, just dangling by the wire. He put the valve on. I guess that was the only way to get it, sleeve the valve, leave it open so the water would come through, thread it on, and then turn the valve off. And at the same time, he was turning the old valve off as well, but he was concerned that that old valve might break. So that's how it was left for months. Okay, the meter dangling, still wrapped in the blankets. The blankets were soaking wet. They're like moving blankets. And so the basement, it's an old Cape Cod basement. It's unfinished. It's very damp. And it didn't dry out until I actually had the heat going in the house to completely dry the basement out. At that time I took the moving blankets upstairs and out of the house and let them dry because they were still soaking wet. So come fast forward. I went through one plumber who was not an ethical person, got rid of him and got another plumber to come in. He gave me a price to finish the house from where the other guy started. He waited about a week and a half or 2 weeks before he told me that he couldn't do the work. So I had to get a third plumber. So I finally got a third plumber to come in and do the work and finish the work for me. And in the process, I could have this picture here for you guys. I only printed 3, but in the process, you can see this is a heat trace. Oh, you have a picture. Thank you. Okay. Okay. In the process, he cut a piece of red PEX and put painter's tape on it to use as a spacer for the meter. And it looks like, if any plumber in their right mind wouldn't put a piece of PEX with painter's tape to try and you know, if I'm gonna steal water, it's not gonna be like this, right? So this was what he's a young plumber, young Brazilian plumber. Very, no, he's from Colombia, but doesn't matter where he's from. He's a really good guy and very trustworthy. And he just added that as a spacer for the meter. And so I get a call, or I get this in the mail saying, and I read it, and I keep reading it over and over again, that it still doesn't apply to me or even to him. But one other piece of information. So this is a copy of the text message that I had with him after. It's not very obvious, but I'll go through it with you. So I asked him if the meter was in, and he said, well, just half the meter. They don't bring the adapters, so they use the old one. That's why they don't connect to the main. That's what he wrote back to me. And I said, at the bottom, you can see here, it's kind of cut off. I didn't know it was cut off, but I said to him, I need you to come to put the meter in to get the water going for the guys. So I'm trying to get the water on with the meter in place. I said, can you come tomorrow, which is actually cut off in that text message. So the water had been off, and I'm trying to get it on. And so within the context of this section 11 that I was given a copy of, it says intentional injury to interfere with meter penalty. So first off, I didn't break the meter intentionally. It froze and burst. And I left the meter there for the water department to come and inspect it when they were replacing it. So it says whoever unlawfully or intentionally injures, which I didn't intentionally injure, or suffers to be injured, a water meter belonging to the city. I didn't do that, my plumber didn't do that. Belonging to the city, town, district, or company engaged in supplying water or prevent such meter from duly registering the quantity of water. It was broken. I didn't intentionally do anything. Or hindered or interfered with the proper action of it. I didn't attach a pipe to it. I mean, if you consider this piece of red PEX with 2 painter's tape on each end, the attachment of a pipe to use the water, I find that I find that to be a reach, because it's a 3/4 inch water line.
You can't use any water.
Yeah, no,
Without that meter there.
right.
That there is a spacer, and you're telling me that they use the water to do the plumbing.
No.
You just said that. You said they put it in there to use the water.
No.
When my guy got there, this
It
was on,
it was
it
a
was
spacer.
dripping into a bucket underneath that was full of water.
If he put it in there as a spacer for the meter. I don't know how that anything, a 1/2 inch piece of red PEX would hold any water.
It didn't, that's what I'm saying. It was on when we got there, and there was water dripping into.
The pipe wasn't on. It's been dripping since the meter broke. All the blankets and everything had been absorbing all of the leakage from that water. I didn't know it was leaking to the extent where it was making the basement that wet.
What I'm saying is, we should have been called right away and came down there with a meter, we would have put a meter in right away. You wouldn't have had to put this there, you wouldn't have had to do any of this, we wouldn't even be here if you called and said, I need a meter, it froze. I don't know why that wasn't done right away, and this was after the fact, and this was put in, this is what we found when we went there to do a repair. Did you change up the meter?
But that's just a spacer. And I can get an affidavit from him, if you like. I thought about this on the way in. If you want him to sign under the pains and penalties of perjury that he was using it as a spacer, not to run water through those pipes, I can have him do that, if you would like.
It looks like a spacer, if that's what it's called. I guess my point is, it sounds like you had 3 different plumbers in the house, they're all licensed plumbers. None of them said, you gotta call the water department immediately before we can do anything.
No. Not one. One guy, the second guy that came in, he just came and gave me a price. And then waited for 2 weeks to tell me that he couldn't do the work.
I mean, I would think that if the job was to examine
The first
that
guy,
meter, that part of the job would be to reinstall the meter.
the first guy that came in and told me he was gonna put 6 guys on the job, he was gonna be done in a week. He showed, the one guy showed up and that plumber didn't show up until I confronted him to come back because his guy wasn't getting the work done quick enough.
But why would he make a temporary repair when it was just as easy to put in a new meter?
My neighbor came over at the time of the flooding that occurred. He was just here, he lives in Boston, but he was here at his home on the weekend. He came over and had to put a valve on because the water was gushing through.
So it wouldn't leak. And then the next step would be to get a new meter, wouldn't it?
Right, but he was never the plumber on the house.
I'm not trying to sound blame for the
Yeah.
plumber, I'm just saying that if the job was to hook up a new meter, then why wasn't that part of, I mean, this looks like all new work here.
Yeah,
So why wasn't part of that work to put in a meter?
I called for a meter.
So he said, okay, I'll do all this, and then you go get the meter, and then I'll come back and put the meter on?
They were working in the house. He was working on all the setting up the heat. It's a Beesman unit. It's a heat pump or a on-demand heat system for both water.
So he
and
was
heating.
there for good luck period.
He came in, so the first guy came in, he did all the piping for the house. Most of it. And then the next plumber who came in to do the work had to fix a lot of his problems, and then he started building the system for the heating, which also, it's a dual system, it's for hot water and for heat. So he was down there working in the basement for several weeks.
Several weeks.
Yeah.
And during that time, you never thought to say, hey, can you call the water department, get a review for me?
I mean, if that was if he's required to do that,
Well, he's a licensed plumber, you should know that.
he was, the owner of the company. Well, he's gotta be a licensed plumber to do all the work, but yeah.
We're missing some part of the story here, and it just seems crazy to me that the different plumbers came in, 2 of them did work, and nobody thought to get a meter to finish the job.
For 5 months after it froze. That's the other thing, it's just the lag. We go from January to May before there was a request for us to come over and replace the new meter.
So it was 5 months.
Yeah, I mean, May 28th.
In the time of the period of time, it was just hard enough to get people to get there to do the work, right? Not only plumbing, but all my other trades, my framing and my electrical,
I
everybody,
think as homeowners, we're all sympathetic to that
Yeah.
experience.
just getting people there to do the work was, and so in my text message, I'm like pleading with him to get there tomorrow so he can connect the meter so I can get water.
I guess my question, what's the damage that occurred from our side? Would we lose a lot of water?
We don't know.
We
We
don't
don't
know.
know, because it was, right.
But,
It was running for 5 months, I mean, it was frozen for 5 months through the winter,
no,
And it froze in January.
January.
Yeah.
And then 5 months from then was when,
So it was just left dangling, the meter was just left
Yeah.
dangling
Till
by
May.
what,
Till May.
till about May, yeah.
so it was it possible leaking during that period of time?
Well, when we got there,
Who removed the meter?
what's that?
Who removed the meter, the frozen meter?
My neighbor,
Your neighbor.
because the water was coming through the meter.
It was coming up from underneath, it has a frost plate that if it freezes, it's made to blow.
So
It's cast iron, yeah.
Yeah.
So it doesn't break everything, but at this point, we don't fix them, you put in a new one, that's why you get charged for another meter.
Right.
Which you're not attested here at all, you know, it broke, it was under your, you know, your care. You gotta fix it, if you wanna go after someone of the contractors, go ahead, that's up to you. This year, when we got there, like I said, it was still on. Somebody was using
The
water,
water was not on.
it was on.
So
It was
you're telling
dripping.
me, you're telling me that it was running through the PEX pipe and with the painter's tape?
Somebody, like, when he got there, it was dripping down, the water was dripping down into the bucket was full and overflowing. So that means there was water running at that point, there wasn't water coming from your house for 5 months, it hadn't been
Yeah,
sitting
but
in
I
your
don't
house
know.
draining.
Yeah, but I don't know if it was me that put the bucket there or somebody else to capture the drip.
Whoever did it, he said, this is on, he said, somebody's been using water upstairs for something. Somebody needed water, they came down, turned it on, ran it through to fill up a bucket, I don't know.
All
But
my
he said
guys,
it's not shut off all the way, and it's on. So somebody's been using water out of here, and that's why you get the fine, because it's unmetered water that's gone through there, and we don't know how much water went through there yet. That's why the meter exists, we know exactly what the flow is, and know exactly what to charge. That's why this, when you say all that, stuff, I don't think you did it intentionally, but somebody turned it on. And it wasn't.
I think what was happening is the old valve probably wasn't closing off completely. And that was my neighbor's concern. He didn't want to fool with that old valve in case it was going to break the stem off. He told me, you got to be careful.
So he unscrewed the spuds, took the meter out and put it to the side, which is, you're not supposed to touch a water either.
Well, it was an emergency. I mean, I
understand, but we have some people on call 24 hours a day.
I didn't know that.
It's there for everybody to see on the website, on everything.
Can I ask another question? So why wouldn't they just do all the work all the way up to this, what do you call it, a spacer?
Yeah.
And just not put the spacer on and just leave all these pipes dry?
He did. There's no water in those pipes.
But why would you connect that red part if you weren't gonna use water?
If he was going to connect, if he wanted to run water in those pipes, he would have taken a piece of copper with couplings and.
No, I understand, but why wouldn't he just leave that?
What's the purpose of this?
Yeah, why can't it?
For the meter, because he said the meter's gonna be this much, or, you know, whatever it is, 12 inches. He cut a piece of red PEX and red tape on it and stuffed it in there so he could align his pipe to where the meter was gonna go.
But it served its purpose to allow water to flow through.
Now,
I see what he's saying. He's saying so he knows what size meter to put in. He stops there so we can just come in and hook it up. If it was a straight meter, it might have worked, but we have.
Can water flow through that red thing?
It can, but I don't know if it will pop off. I don't know.
Under pressure?
Under pressure, it might just pop. But if something's open, it would definitely work to fill up something off a garden hose or something like that was open. Or if there was if there was something open right here, it would just continue out without any pressure on it.
So I think both things could be true. I think there could be no intention to steal water, but at the same time,
this technically, I'm being like very transparent on what I said to him was, I need you to come put the meter in, or, I mean, it was there, but it wasn't connected. So what I was saying is, please connect the meter, connect your pipe to the meter, so I can get water for the guys that are there.
so what happened
The
between
meter was frozen.
January and May? You had a lot of work done for weeks and weeks.
Yeah.
They were working on all sorts of systems, including water
Including,
system.
and I'll give you, for instance, the plasterers that came, they came with 55-gallon drums of water to mix the plaster to plaster the walls. The guys that I had there, we had a porta potty there, porta john. I paid $350, $400 a month for a porta john. If I wanted to be nefarious and steal water and, you know, have a toilet in the house, could have done that, but that's not what I did, and that's not what my sons did. They're all trustworthy guys.
So he finished his work in May? Sebastian?
No,
Huh?
oh, he might have finished. No, he didn't finish in May. He continued. He had to finish a lot more of the work. Close to May, let's say June. No, he finished in end of July because I got the
Chris,
CO.
why were your guys called there?
To change, put in water meter, because they have frozen. The communication with Jen is
I
there.
requested the meter.
So-
Yeah, put it.
Somebody goes email chain that,
Somebody knew that you were supposed to have a meter, that's why you called to get the meter.
yeah,
I emailed. Was it Jen? To have a new meter put in place.
I just went out to look at it.
Same day.
Saw the water dripping, but not necessarily filling up the system, Chris.
Well, it's got a spacer, which looks like a first gas, irrelevant. There's the other, yeah. How often is this happen before?
spacers or,
Yeah, there's like construction freezes, ruins
it happens probably 2-3 times a year.
and usually the plumber immediately calls and says,
Yeah, well, the homeowner, somebody calls right away and says, listen, you gotta get over, either turn it off or, because I don't want the valve to freeze itself. Or, they say, come over, fix it, and I'll make sure that it doesn't freeze again. And they buy a new meter and they pay my dad to put it over there, and I was, later.
and one would assume that a licensed plumber is fully aware of.
Yeah.
You know, that is scary code.
The only thing I have to say is that, I'll go back and say it again, when my guy got there, it was dripping, like I said, and water was running. In this picture where we put the water meter in, that meter's set up, and there's no water coming out of it at all. So I don't know how much, you know, like if somebody was using that back and forth, didn't shut it off all the way, maybe. That's why it was only dripping like that. But it does turn off, it does work, because it's proof right there with the picture that you sent me, there's no water coming out of that meter right now.
One thing I could say about like the timing. If there was if anybody told me, which I don't think anybody did, say you gotta call the water department, get a meter put in place, but the back of the house was open and exposed to the elements from January through March. And I had the heat trace on the pipe. And still I was concerned about that freezing and breaking as well. But so maybe in the back of my mind, I was thinking, let's get to warmer weather and before I call for the meter. I knew I needed a meter, it was just, you know, when to call. And I didn't know that it was a requirement to immediately call.
Yeah, it's your responsibility to make sure that doesn't freeze. And, you know, if you had called us that day, we would advise you probably to shut the water off if you weren't gonna have heat there. To shut it off at the street, drain it,
Yeah,
until
I should have done
better
that.
weather, and it would have been done that way.
Yeah.
Well, Chris, what's your sense of what happened here?
I don't think that he did anything willingly or on purpose or anything like that, but I do believe that somebody was using water in the house under construction. Whether it was one of your contractors, I don't know. I don't know if you had masons there too. I don't know. Anything that needs water, if somebody said, you know, I only need 10 gallons, let's run it up quick.
The reason why I was trying to get the water on, once the meter was put in place, is because I had to finish the tile in the house.
Okay.
And they were waiting for me to get them water to finish the.
So the oddest part of the story to me is the plumber's not on.
Yeah.
Because I can see where, you know, I might not know, but I don't know, I guess I might either call a plumber or I'd call the water department, and I would assume the plumber would know
Well,
how to fix it.
I'll give you a little context of my plumber, very good young gentleman, apparently licensed. Has a boss, right? He came in, he did the work, he did the gas lines in my house. He failed the gas inspection because he didn't mark the pipes where the pro press. You're supposed to mark the pipe and then you put the fitting on and then use the pro press to crimp it, right? The inspector saw, he didn't see all of the marks. So he had to tear it all back out and put it all back in. And I'm fine with it because I want it done right, but that delayed me even more, right?
So maybe that's the guy that,
Yeah, but he didn't do it intentionally. He didn't
he didn't know what he was supposed to do, I guess, right?
He didn't, I don't think he knew that he had to call.
Yeah, but what I'm trying to gather, it sounds like most plumbers would know that.
I have never had anybody freeze a meter and not call
Right.
right away.
He didn't know about the.
No, I know, I'm just saying, I've never been to, even houses that are under construction, I get a call the next day from somebody saying, hey, the water meter's frozen, we gotta get over here.
Yeah.
Because it doesn't just freeze and nothing happens, this water comes flying out of that.
Like I said,
Yeah, and like you said, you have 4 inches of water in there.
Yeah.
The way to stop it is to call us, and we go over and shut it off. Well, I don't know what you have for electricity, you shouldn't be walking around with water.
No,
There's
yeah.
live wires down there.
Yeah, no. And again, it was a Cape Cod basement. It was very, when I say unfinished,
Yeah, no,
it's,
I've been, yeah.
yeah.
We also get many calls from homeowners who say the plumber was here, there's a drip at the
Correct.
meter and it's on your side of the meter, they
Yeah.
know not to touch it.
Yeah.
So I agree, it is unusual that the plumber wouldn't know.
Was your plumber, was English the second language?
And this would have been the guy from Boston that with the frozen meter, who should have known to call the water department,
Yeah,
even on a Saturday.
maybe he was thinking he just was doing me a favor and, you know, he got it fixed to where it's not, you know, spraying out and off he went. Because he's not the plumber, you know, of record. You know. It's just a number of things, you know, events that have taken place.
We got a lot of things on the agenda, Mr. Chairman.
Yeah, I would take this under advisement. I'd like to also check with the district council and see what the implications are for plumber liability on this. Plumbers need to know that they can't go dicking around with pardon my French, they can't go messing around with water meters to not call us immediately. And I don't want to sound blank, but this in some ways is the type of offense that plumbers get their license yanked for.
Yeah.
I would call the guy who owns that plumbing company, who was in working for weeks, and ask the owner to send you a copy of your plumber's license.
Yeah.
And send that to us.
Yeah, it seems, again, I'm not sure I get it all straight, but from what I'm hearing, if I were you, there's a fine or something coming, maybe that person should be helping you out with that, because it sounds like maybe it wasn't your fault, it was his fault.
Well, again, if we read this to the
Yeah.
letter of the law, right?
Yeah, yeah,
I'm not a lawyer,
yeah.
okay? But if I read this right, it sounds like the onus is on you guys to find the intent, or so it's gotta be intentional, right?
It doesn't say it has to be.
Whoever unlawfully or intentionally injures.
Unlawfully is or unlawfully is touching that meter and taking it out right away.
And intentionally, it's not or and, sorry, and
No.
intentionally, okay?
But no, the next.
Or suffers to
sentence
be
is or
injured.
suffers to be injured.
Right.
And that's what happened.
So that my plumber didn't suffer to be injured. The water meter, none of us suffered to be injured or intentionally injured the water meter. No one did.
Once it got dismantled and taken off of the pipe and whatever emergency repair was made.
all I'm saying is when the lawyers get involved, which I don't want them to get involved.
There's a whole bunch of orders here, and one says, or attaches a pipe to the main or pipe belonging to the city, town, district water company. Or otherwise uses, causes to use the water supply from the city. So this is a very vague rule to stop any theft of water.
It's not vague, Chris, it's giving a series of contingencies,
Correct.
any one of which would be illegal.
Right.
It's not just damaging the water meter, the intent of this, it looks to me, is for people to get water that's not metered.
Right.
And regardless of how that occurs, the onus is on
Let me put it another way.
the service.
Somebody who takes their meter off, attaches a coupling with a copper pipe and runs it and does something nefarious that is, you can easily determine that there is, an illegal, occurrence happening versus an emergency shut off with a meter dangling that 3 plumbers later gets to a point where his work is done. I call, we get the meter, we call for the meter to be placed so we can connect the water to the house. There's no intent.
No, I think there's certainly degrees of negligence here.
But this doesn't say
Any
anything about
negligence
negligence.
is not letting us know immediately. That could be, intentional or not intentional. But it seems to me that this is something we should, as Chris said in his letter, it's a serious violation and we should take it seriously. And I think we should defer it to next meeting to make a decision. You're welcome to come back. So, does that make
That's
sense?
the whole reason why I'm here, because I know it's serious. I didn't want to do it via Zoom.
We appreciate it.
And listen, this is, I don't know when you gave me this, how many months ago? I mean, I apologize for not being here sooner.
The dates on the letter.
What's the blue pipe?
June 4th.
That's heat trace.
That's the fourth, yeah.
That's what I was trying to, that's what I wrapped it all. And then I put moving blankets around it, and it still burst.
Yeah, and the fittings were on that meter right there too. If you needed the fittings to put in to figure out what size for the meter, all that was right there to plumb it. We could have put that right back up there and plumb to where that was. I don't know why, just.
Let me ask you another question. Let's think
Mr.
about.
Chair, I'm gonna take this under advisement for the next meeting.
Here, second.
Yeah, we gotta move on, we got a lot of stuff.
Okay.
Sorry. It's
I was just gonna
complicated.
say, what if that red pipe wasn't there, or the red piece of PEX wasn't there?
And we wouldn't be talking about this at all.
Aye.
All right,
Thank you for coming in.
thank you. Social security grant authorization. Shall I read this into the record? This is Appendix A, certifying statement. I hereby certify that the Board of Water Commissioners, Situate Fire District Water Department, here and now referred to as the applicant, at a meeting noticed and conducted in accordance with all applicable legal requirements, duly voted to authorize Superintendent Christopher Wiseman to act on behalf of the applicant as its agent in filing applications for, executing agreements regarding and performing any and all other actions necessary to secure for the applicant, such as grants and/or loans for planning or construction of water pollution abatement projects or drinking water projects as may be made available to the applicant pursuant to the provisions of the Massachusetts Clean Water Acts. So on and so forth. I hereby certify that Christopher Wiseman is the present incumbent of the position referenced above, and so hereby certify that the attached resolution is a true and correct copy of the resolution as formally adopted at a meeting of the governing body held on this, the 16th day of April, 2025, and duly recorded in my office. Do I hear a motion to approve and authorize the chairman to sign this certifying statement for the purpose of applying for grants to help fund our cybersecurity authorization process?
There's one question, Russ Camp is assisting with the grant application?
Yeah, they did, yeah,
Okay,
they were the ones that did the cybersecurity. Yeah.
okay. Yeah, so moved, Mr. Chairman.
All in favor? Aye.
Thank you. I need it. Sorry.
Water quality report, Mr. Superintendent.
Well, we didn't have any, everything was clean this month, no ozone hits. We have not done any other testing since last month. I'm scheduled to do PFAS this month. We were gonna do it today, but we had a couple things happen. We put it off the next week.
And with that, PFAS has to be the one that Mark Nelson's looking for?
This is gonna be the one for the state right now. We're supposed to do 2 stations, we're gonna do 5. We're gonna do the regular testing for this, we were gonna do the
More detail?
more details for the test wells.
When are we gonna do that?
I believe that we said we do it every 6 months, so I think that comes up in July. With Tom Kimber, I talked to him and I told him to call me around the 5-month mark, and we put it out.
I'd just say the sooner the better for that, because we got a little bit of the smoking gun, and Mark also wanted to see the more detailed test to help us figure stuff out, right? So is there any downside in moving that up a little bit? Why 6 months, I guess?
Well, that's what you guys told me to do, that's.
I don't know, not a big deal, that's just,
Yeah.
okay, for that more detail. My suggestion, Chris.
All right, I'll put on call.
Yep.
Superintendent's report.
Excuse me. All right, superintendent's report for March 2025, right on April 16th. March of 2024, we pumped 6,781,000 gallons of water. March of 2025, we pumped 6,954,000 gallons of water for an increase of 173,000 gallons. That's there, it's can be expected.
Yeah.
Their association news, Boston County Water Utilities is putting together a water fair that they do every year, that they hold at the technical school. For a few classes, the guys can get 6 contact hours up there. So they're gonna be throwing that out soon. I did attend New England Water Works conference in Worcester last month, the beginning of the month. A lot of people there, it's one of the biggest out there, and everything. But I enjoy going there and talking to a lot of people. And Mass Water Works and
PFAS talk?
yeah, there's a lot of classes in PFAS talk and you name it, they throw probably 3 different sessions in the morning, 3 or 4 different sessions in the morning, 3 or 4 in the afternoon, different times tiered, and it's amazing the amount of work that goes into that. Both Mass Water Works and Mass Rural have drawn out their schedules for their classes that are coming up. I believe Keegan, right now, who's a new guy, he wants to go with the new, taking a class for introduction to waterworks. I'm just waiting, you guys have a warrant out there, I don't know if you guys have already signed it today, but his application for Mass Waterworks is in there, and that will save us about 60, 70 bucks, I think it is, something like that.
Yeah.
If he gets that application in. So we're just waiting on that. Under general discussion, it's pretty easy. Didn't have any new or replacement services done in March. There were no leaks. The generator that we talked about last month, they did come down, pick it up, and brought it back. I have not heard anything official from them, but I saw a couple of the guys that came to do inspections the other day, and he told me that he's never seen an infestation that large. He says, I don't see how they're gonna be able to save it in any way, but he says they're still trying to see what needs to be done to assess it. the cyber grant, that was all I was gonna ask, make sure you guys sign that, so we can get that in.
Chris, going back to the generator.
Yep.
In the last meeting, did we discuss, hope that if we need a new one, getting something on the wall?
We're not gonna be able to get it on the warrant this year.
Okay.
If we do it, we'll have to, if there's a special meeting, maybe we'll jump in on that throughout the year. If not, we'll just put something together for next year.
Gotcha.
Can I ask a question?
Sure thing.
Is the generator, does it receive maintenance, like on a regular basis?
Yes.
Like once
Yeah.
a year?
Yeah, they go in once a year to do the maintenance on it, make sure everything's good, clean up what they can. And what happened with that was they've noticed it over the years that the mice were getting in. So they started, putting wire around all the openings and trying to stop them from getting in. And, they just kept on finding a way, and it just got worse and worse and worse. And they might have been there the whole time and didn't burn out. They're in an area that when it's running, doesn't burn them out. They might run out and come back, but, yeah. So, right now, we do a lot of, preventive work down there now. We got many baits and everything. When they picked it up, there was like 3 dead mice and a rabbit underneath, so, so, I feel bad.
So we killed them.
Where was it? The litigation, I did sign and, accept the 2 other, companies that we said, that settled, I think it was Tyco and BASF. I did send in the paperwork, confirm everything so they could put in our claim. I just wanna, with the minutes that we have there, when I was reading them, I don't know if I explained it quite right, I just wanna make sure that I do again. They only settled with 4 companies and 1 company has filed bankruptcy. So there was 5 that they have finished litigation, finished with, they still have 12 other companies to negotiate with. So that's how it was supposed to be left, and I think it says in the minutes that there were 5 that had settled, and 1 that didn't.
It says 5 others that reached settlement, and
Correct.
one's declared bankruptcy.
Yeah, so 4 they settled with, and 1 declared bankruptcy actually, so I might have said it wrong, I apologize. Other than that, the W2 situation is still not resolved. Everybody had to do basically an extension on their taxes. Ray had left, we had talked about it at the potential committee with Dave. Ray had stated that they had put us in the line with everybody else that has to be fixed. And that they're not moving up, they're just putting us in there as they came in. So we'll get them when we get them.
You mean other customers?
Yeah, other customers who request different, any kind of stuff done to us. So Fran, I believe it was, said, don't you think it's time we get a different payroll company?
I mean, no,
So,
anybody can make a mistake once.
yeah,
Make
this
the
is
same
twice,
mistake
2 years in a row, and the way they kind of treated Ray, when they kind of refused to do anything, he had to talk them into it originally, and then they did it wrong. So, they are currently looking for another payroll company also.
And it's still gonna affect us for next year's taxes, because even if they change payroll company now, we still have payroll in 2025, so we'll be getting 2 W-2s.
Come on. Tell you a little about the new hire. He's doing great.
What's his name?
Keegan Duval.
Keegan Duval?
Yep. He lives in Marston's Mills. He's really, paying attention, learning, like I said, wants to learn a little more. Seems to be really good. He went out and did a couple turn-ons by himself today, because we got a little backed up. So he said, I'll try that out by myself, and he did a couple easy ones, but, he's doing well. The last thing I have on here is, not that it's great news, but, you know that, we're in drought, mild drought right now. Last week's rain has put about an inch of water into our almost just under an inch, our table went up. So it's looking better and everything else. They're saying that between last month and this month, it looks a lot better, but that's only 2 months out of, so many, yeah.
I've been down in the swamps this week. And the same swamp that I went to last year had 18 inches of water, and this year it had 6 inches.
Wow, yeah.
Well, I've been walking around Eagle Pond pretty regularly and water's coming up pretty good.
Okay.
Yeah, that's a pretty good indicator.
Yeah, I drive by Lovell's Pond and we got a stick out there.
Oh, yeah.
And I glance at it every time, just to see how much it goes up and down, and it's been raising, at least this month, so hopefully it'll keep going. Everybody keeps telling me, boy, this weather, I'm like, yeah, this weather.
Trying to paint my house.
It was sleeping Sunday.
While we're on the superintendent's report, I just wanted to say that I really thought that the CCR looks much better, and to thank the staff for putting that together.
Yes, I agree.
And it's you know, it's got the same information, but the larger format is easier to read. I like the fact that we got to explain some of our work. That was great. And the uncredited photographer did a nice job.
It's quite handsome. Well done. Thanks, Jim.
Yeah, thank you.
Good job. That's what I have.
Thank you, Chris. Shall we move on to old business? Source water protection test wells, CWMP update, Commissioner Horsley.
Okay, I'll be brief. I guess the only thing, continuation from last time, we are thinking about a community civic association sponsored workshop on wastewater. And it looks like August is the target, David, if I understand that correctly.
Yeah.
So I've talked to Rob Steen at DPW. He's definitely interested and willing and able to be there. I did mention it to our prospective consultant, Anastasia Rudenko from GHD, and invited her to at least listen in or attend if she can, because she's, you know, the one that's proposing on this cluster system. So that's in the works. The only thing I want to mention, I guess it will fit best here to talk about the private well data, that if I can address that now. So Jen, thank you. Every now and then I call Jen for a little update. Of course, she gets this done like I call her a week in advance, I want to give her a few days, and 15 minutes later, she calls me back and it's done. So she put together this, I think we all have a copy of the more than 100 private wells now that we have got in here because of the regulation. And we've got a total of water saved, which is 12,838,000, comparing pre-well going in and after. And I just did some quick calculations to put that in perspective. So 12.8 million gallons during the 90-day summer, if I divide it by 90, gets me about 142,000 gallons per day, which is about 15% of a million. So one way to look at it, the peak of our summer, we're saving around 15% of the peak pumping so far, which is pretty good. And then I got thinking about it, and I did a second calculation, which I just double checked, because what's happening is this water is pumped out of the groundwater that people's property and goes on their lawns. According to the Cape Cod Commission, about 80% of the nitrogen fertilizer that goes on lawns gets attenuated. So the lawns are acting as a little bit of a treatment, processing water out of the groundwater. Remember we talked about fertigation wells? So my calculations, if I take that same amount of water, that comes out to the equivalent of about 24 homes being sewered and sent to Hyannis in terms of kilograms.
It's all about sewage, isn't it? Sewage. It's all about sewage.
If you figured 100 grand per home sewering cost, which is probably low, it's probably more like 140,000. That's 24 times 100,000, 2.4 million. Get that right? Dollars worth of treatment. So the point here is we're getting two bennies from this. We're getting less water being used, which gives you a break, and we're getting some treatment of nitrogen, which is pretty cool. So I'll double check those figures, but I think they're both pretty good, and I think it's good progress.
Your 15% figure is in line with the 17% that we had previously calculated. I forgot how.
Oh, did we?
To show the decrease in water use.
Okay.
So That's, you know, 15 to 17% is a significant savings in the water budget for Katuitt.
Yeah.
It says that demand is still down under 18%.
18%.
Yeah, yeah. So, yeah, it's in line. That'd be valuable stuff for the Cape Cod Commission. stuff.
Yes, yeah, I'll kind of write that up and circulate it. Double check my calculations first, of course, but.
Some of these variances, Jen, are so low, like from, you know, just say the 117,000 down to 17,000, so that's a 90% decrease. 17,000, I mean, that's a lot less than a typical household, so that must be a summer resident. They're not here through the year. But yeah, when you think of all that water that one house is using just to spill out on the water.
Yeah,
750,000 gallons.
Anything else on that topic?
no, thank you.
Commissioner Robinson, conservation restrictions for property.
So I tasked myself with this street. Where is the conservation restriction on the school property that the town still owns, which is the playing fields and the entrance from Main Street and the tennis courts. So I finally tracked it down and guess where? The attorney's office at Town Hall, where a lot of things go to die. Unless you keep poking the bear. So they were very good to get back to me quickly and say that they need to burnish it a little bit, and then they'll provide it to us. Our district council didn't seem to know much about it, so I bring him into the loop. And you know, I offered to the town attorney's office that I'd be happy to run it through the state, which is what I do for a living, so we'll see if they want me to do that, but in any case, at least we've dusted it off and hopefully we can resurrect it.
Well, thank you for chasing it. Having chased it myself. Enabling legislation update, nothing official, but I have heard from Carol says that it's unlikely that it's going to pass before district meeting in May, and that has not been assigned to committee yet.
Well, it would be local affairs.
Yeah, but it hasn't gone to for the first reading.
David, just one question. I don't know the process that well up there. Is this just sort of timing to get it up, or is it not being, were people not paying attention to it
It's
and
not important
unlikely to
enough.
move
You
forward?
have to have your state rep bird dog it daily.
Well, that's what I'm trying to figure out. Should we patiently wait and it's gonna happen? Because everybody told me that this will go through. He was pretty confident this would go
There's
through.
no reason why I wouldn't go through it, just not getting attention. So you have to keep poking the bear.
And that's his job.
Yeah, and that's our job to poke him.
Right.
So I guess that's should we poke?
Yeah, we keep sending emails to his legislative aides, CCing him. And I will redouble the efforts and maybe start CCing state senators.
Just an idea. We could invite him in. I know when I get invited to a meeting, I want to get the homework done before I show up. Is that an idea?
We could, but that would be.
I defer to you.
our Main meeting. And
I defer to you, just-
2 weeks before.
Yeah.
Let's see what happens.
Okay, fair enough.
Yeah. New business, the public meeting that you mentioned, Commissioner Horsley, this is in the last meeting, we discussed having a session on wastewater strategy, and present to the fire district, the water department's concerns about wastewater, but also bring the people of the district up to date on the CWMP and sewering and other alternatives. I met with the president of the Civic Association, Carol Says. She thinks it's a great idea and thinks that the best time to have that meeting is August, in line with their annual meeting where they elect new officers and rest.
Great.
And so I'd like to talk about who we should invite and what type of agenda. we want to pull together.
Well, I would be happy to do a brief intro relative to our source water plan we put together a while back as sort of the instigator of this. And then I guess I'm gonna wear a couple different hats, right? I could briefly mention my, committee work we're doing with the update of the plan. That would be a good time to turn it over to Rob
Right.
to talk about the sewer plan.
And you are chairman of the ad hoc.
Shit, I am.
Okay, that's good. So
And
we'll
then-
invite you.
So I could wear two hats quickly there briefly. And then I think Rob, have him describe the plan. The only thing I'm wondering about is who could describe the alternatives?
See,
Huh?
see,
Zeke Crocker. maybe.
Well, he would be on the IA system.
You can talk about IA.
Oh, you mean package?
Yeah,
Well, we have a consultant.
well, we haven't hired her yet. We can ask her to do something.
Yeah.
We could.
If she's expert on the topic.
She is expert.
Then we could invite.
Want me to invite her and see if she's willing? Okay. I'll do that.
We'll talk about these, what do you call them, satellite systems or?
Yeah. And again, this will be a little sensitive to the town, but that's okay. We just want to get it out there, right, for the options.
And then how about someone from, I forget the acronym, Mass Tech or wherever
Yep.
you do it,
There's a young guy there, Brian Horsey, is very well spoken.
on your diversion and other alternatives.
We could do that too, go the full spectrum.
Would that be pretty much a spectrum,
Yeah,
Rob, Steve,
yes.
on big
Sewer.
sewer? The consultant
That's a good
on,
idea.
on the satellite
Yep.
system, Z Crocker
On
on
the IAs, Brian
and Brian
Horsey.
Horsey on your diversion.
That's
Yeah.
covering everything.
And then as a courtesy, our town council, of course, Seth Burdick, our state rep, Kip Diggs,
Yep.
and anyone else.
Boy, that's more than I was thinking, but that's great. How long is this meeting typically?
Well,
The
and
annual
that's
meeting?
just, I like to keep it tight.
Couple hours? What is it?
Are we talking about the annual
Yeah.
meeting?
Yeah, August,
It's usually an hour and a half.
And how much of that is business that you need to do?
Well, very often, I would say only a small amount,
So there's usually a main topic, I'm trying to remember the last one that I went to. What was last year's topic, do you remember?
I can't remember.
I can't
I
remember.
don't remember. Yeah,
Well, I think this is great, that's a solid hour of,
yeah, I think that's.
Might have been
okay.
about our school
I was
readings.
thinking that too.
maybe 10
It was
minutes.
school, it was school readings.
I had to
So
record.
maybe the presentations are 5 to 10 minutes.
Yep.
And then we leave half an hour for Q&A.
Yeah, I would clear that through Carol, she's definitely much more in charge of that.
All right,
I'll volunteer to do that and.
thank you. And I'll reach out to some of the speakers, Rob and Anastasia, and I probably can figure out where Brian lives.
I think, yeah, I see him every morning.
Can I just ask, are we targeting, what are we targeting in terms of, improving the water? Is it PFAS mostly, or it's not, it's not like,
That's
right.
No, I think you're right. It probably is more PFAS and a lot of unknowns. I mean, I guess it's this, it's this area here, right? And my thesis is this is wastewater that's going to our supply. And one of the things that I might say is, to quote Laurel Schneider from the Silent Spring Institute, if people on Cape Cod knew how much sunscreen they were drinking, they'd be pretty concerned. But nobody's tested for it, but we better believe it's in our water. Do you ever take a shower after putting sunscreen on?
not trying to.
So there's a lot of unknowns that we don't want to scare people, but I think it's fair to say we don't like the idea of wastewater going to our drinking water supply. Most places end up waiting until the levels get too high, and they put treatment on the wellhead. We're taking a different approach. Let's try to get the stuff out of the watershed. So that's kind of, I don't think we're targeting a specific chemical. PFAS is certainly, I think we heard from Tom Cambereri, that equally as household is enough to create at least a low level of PFAS. So it's all of the above.
So it's more pollutants, more so than, I'm not saying nitrogen is not a pollutant, but it's not, it's more.
Our nitro levels are pretty decent, right?
Yeah, you're not bad.
They go,
couple, two,
yeah,
three, one of them's up to 4.5, I think, once,
yeah,
the nitrate levels. But yeah, we're well below the drinking water standard for that, but you know, one of the wells is up to 4 to 5 milligrams per liter, which is an indicator that there's something going into the water supply. Probably sewage, probably wastewater.
It's just that the whole sewer system, I think, is, a lot of it is targeted towards the nitrogen problem with the.
That's right,
pigs and
that's
so
right.
on. So
Yep.
we might want to make that distinction.
Yeah. Yeah, good point, yep.
But it is a contaminant of concern for drinking water supplies.
Yeah.
At least secondhand from the Barnstable Clean Water Coalition's cost analysis, they cite that Palm's nitrogen has spiked. I
Yeah.
don't know if that's
Yeah.
pervasive.
Yeah, it has, yeah.
One station.
Could you remind me what the subject was for Mass Tech, for Brian to present?
On urine diversion or alternative.
Composting toilets,
Thank you,
BRYAL.
thank you.
Shall we move on to the Cape Cod Commission rate study, Commissioner Robinson?
We don't have a date for that. It's what, August something?
No, I have to fix that with Carol. Her feeling was also, we'll just have the highest possible attendance with the several people.
Sure.
Have the horse in the race, because they're gonna have to connect at some point to something.
The Cape Cod Commission has just been awarded a grant from the state to collect data, analyze it regarding how different water suppliers throughout the Cape price their water. And, you know, most suppliers use the tier system for, you know, lower rates for less use and higher rates for higher use. I don't think anybody has the degree of difference that we do in terms of the higher tiers, but anyway, that's being collected by Tara and I, the commission staff, and I invited her to come in May here if she wants to tell us a little bit more about it.
I think that would be great. I for one, would be interested to see how different our rates are.
I think it's much higher.
What's that?
I think it's much,
Well, yeah, that's good.
much more graduated.
But it would be interesting to actually see the numbers, you know, like a picture chart.
But in any case, so I'd be happy to serve as a liaison with her and the commission in this body.
Please do. Shall we move on to the review and approval of the prior meetings minutes? Commissioners, have you had a chance to review?
I've read them and the 3/26/25 minutes, and I will move to approve as written.
Second.
May I offer a amendment with the correction suggested by the superintendent on PFAS, that 4 other companies have reached a settlement, not 5.
Okay.
All in favor?
As amended, yes. Aye.
Matters not anticipated by the chair, I have none. Any additional public comment?
Did we mention that you and I attended the Prudential Committee meeting and the budget went over well? Was that it last month or was that?
Yeah. That's somebody-
Okay, that's what I thought. The other thing was just a reminder, it's in there too, but candidates night. What's the date?
Oh,
Tuesday, May 27th is the annual district and no, that's, the annual district is on May 28th, 27th is
It's in the second,
sorry, no, I'm sorry, the 20th,
May
May 20th.
20th.
Yeah, it's the 20.
I'm looking at every meeting, I'm like, what, what I want?
I've got 3 days.
Yeah, so you better be able to do one of those. No.
Yeah, we have week late, you got to show up for 27.
Don't forget, you gotta vote, yeah, you gotta vote for yourself on the 27th. Then you gotta be here on the 28th.
all right, shall we set the date for the next meeting of the Board of Water Commissioners? May, the 3rd Wednesday is the 21st.
Yep, I'll be away that week.
That week. How is the 14th for the commissioners?
It should be good.
Good for me.
Wait a minute. Yes, I can do that. I don't know, still checking. I think I can do that. Yep.
All right, May 14th. 14th at 5:45 PM. A motion to adjourn.
So moved.
All in favor? Aye. Thank you.